All right, welcome to Now This Is Podcasting. I'm your host, Connor, and I'm here with former guest Calvin.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
And we have McKinnon on as a guest again.
What's up?
Glad to have you back.
It's good to see you again.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we had Jaden step out for a little bit, and so it's good to... I like having your perspective, so it's nice to have another person jump in and have someone else to talk about, because I got a little tired of Calvin.
Yeah, I know, right? Filling those empty monologues of me just pontificating.
So I like those parts. So, and we're doing a quick dip on the Shawshank Redemption today. We did one on Jaws not too long ago, and I think kind of the idea is to get some of our thoughts out on these movies that are considered like these are Hollywood classics, and maybe kind of get into why there will be like a review aspect of this, but it's also kind of like, oh, why is this movie such a big deal?
Why do we still talk about them?
Right. Let's see. I pulled up some of the stats for this one. It's directed by Frank Darabont, and it came out in 1994. It had a budget of $25 million and made $58 million, so it did like pretty well. And considering it's a 90s movie, that isn't like, it's not like an action movie or anything like that. It did pretty well. And it's 2 hours and 20 minutes. It feels that, I think.
That's funny. I don't.
Oh, really? I got kind of over this movie maybe halfway through.
Okay.
I think it feels longer.
Really?
But in a good way.
Elaborate on that? Like how, like you enjoyed like this the characters and like the story being told that you...
Yeah, like I felt very invested.
Like
in
there
the
were
story,
just there were so many plot points that you felt like, wow, we really covered a lot of tracks. So I feel like it's a longer movie because we covered years and decades.
Sorta, sure.
Okay, I may be reading too much into your...
Maybe. No, I really like the pacing of it, and I was invested the whole way through, and I didn't think it was too long in a bad way. I thought it was long in a good way.
Okay. I think I'm starting to realize that going back through some of these classics, I'm like, wow, people watched shitty movies like back then. Like, I mean, this just isn't particularly impressive to me. Like, my first impression is this is the kind of movie that like a suburban dad gets excited for. Like, it's Saturday afternoon. He's finished mowing the lawn. He's got his favorite pair of khakis on. His New Balances are double knotted, and he's going to treat himself, and he's going to sit down and
He's got an ice pack.
Yeah. And he's going to watch the Shawshank Redemption. And this movie is fine. I mean, it's certainly not bad. I don't always understand why some of these like classics, like why are they classics? Because I don't like get a lot out of this movie. It's this movie is like the least risk-taking like classic I think ever. Like not a lot is going on in it. Like I understand what you're saying, where it's like you're invested in the characters. The characters are interesting in it, and they're the whole driving force of the movie. But sort of like there's no tension in it. I kind of always feel like everything is going to be resolved and it's going to work out for them. Like there's never a point where I think like there's a conflict that I'm really taking seriously. And so that's kind of why I think like this is a really safe movie that, just a dad watches on his day off,
Yeah, I don't think it's risky. Like the movie's not trying to say anything too out there or whatever. It's just a story about your hero, and will he make it in the end or not? And we all know he's going to. But
right.
It's not a risky movie, as you put it.
Right.
Yeah. Honestly, like, this is a wonderful movie.
Oh, wow.
I enjoyed it a lot. I was like 90 minutes in. I was like, man, that just flew by in a way that like other movies that we've watched recently have not.
Yeah, we've had a couple ones that I think were rough to get through. Like, because I think we always try to watch these like, a second and third time to make sure we're doing our due diligence, and there's a couple that's like, okay, one time was probably enough.
Yeah.
Was this your first time watching it, Calvin?
I mean, no. Like I wanted to talk about this movie for a while because I'm aware of it, and I wanted to revisit it, with my wider film knowledge now. Because when I remember Shawshank, I don't remember anything necessarily cinematic, or like anything visually arresting or unique, and so I wanted to revisit that and see if that's still the case. And so yeah, that's why we went back to this, and like I think that's like why I want to talk about Shawshank so much. It's like it's because it's widely considered by like many casual moviegoers to be the best movie of all time, and so why do people think that? And but it may be one of the best movies of all time, but this is the movie that we really want to harp on the difference between movie and film. Like, this is a great story, but it's a talking book and not a film. It's not anywhere close to the best film or even in the conversation.
Can you, I kind of, because I read your note on that, can you are we going to talk about it more, or do you want to elaborate on what is the difference between a movie and a film? Hannah and I were talking about it the other day, and I was joking. I was like, it's kind of the same way the Supreme Court defines pornography. It's like, I can't sit here and give you a definitive definition, but you know it when you see it. That's kind of how I feel about a difference between a movie and a film. It's like, I can tell like Lamb, like that's a film. Jaws is a movie. Like, it's like I can't define why I think of one as the other one, but do you have like a more definitive way to describe them?
Yeah, so I've split this up into like why Shawshank is a good movie and why Shawshank is a bad film. So we'll get more into that in a little bit. And I would call Jaws, it has film qualities.
Right, okay.
It's a movie, but
that's why I say
overall,
for me it's hard to pin down, like, but I just know it when I see it,
Yeah. So we've that's how we've split this up. Like why Shawshank, what Shawshank does well, why it's good, why it's a fun, simple, easy movie, and why it's not a good film is because it doesn't take advantage of the medium. So we'll get to that though.
Okay. Do we want to get into like why is this a good movie?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with the overall narrative, because the overall narrative is really like the whole point. Why I was engaged the whole time. It's engrossing. I'm invested. It's because it's structures all of its plot points in a way that you're riding up and down, getting more attached, feeling the emotions of the characters. So like this is the order basically of events. It's you have his conviction, you have a slight build up by staying sane the first night, and then the worst low with all of the rape and beatings, and then up through his empowerment from his associations.
I didn't remember any of that being as brutal as it was. Like I'd seen this years ago, and then I rewatched it again. I was like, oh my God.
I'm sure that's
so
a TV
brutal
thing, like TBS, like
the edit of it.
They took all of that out.
I was like, oh my God, this is really brutal.
Right. And I think, but there's also like parts of it like they really insinuated a lot. We know we can pick up that subtext super easy now, but I wonder how much like as kids, like we were really talking about like, biting penises.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then you have up through his empowerment from all of his associations with the captain and the warden, and then a dip from confronting the existential nature of being institutionalized. That's the whole section of Brooks being on the outside and what it means to like, I might have station within this prison, but I'm not free. I'm not anywhere. I'm not going. I'm not doing anything. So then you have this another up with all of his projects, like the library, music, his little Tommy project. And then another rise with possible hope and a new trial, and then crushed by the warden killing Tommy and putting him in the hole for 2 months, and then the ultimate lift with escape. So it's all of it follows. Like you don't have like multiple lifts and multiple dips in a row. You're constantly feeling the ups and downs of someone who's been in prison for 20 years, and so nothing ever feels tired. And nothing ever takes too long for that reason. We're just little different elements the whole time.
McKinnon, you mentioned that you like the pacing. Like, is that like part of the reason why you think it is paced out well? It's like kind of the peaks and valleys like make sense, and they are like spread out in a way that makes the movie like engaging. Is that like part of like your take on that?
Yeah, I think so. It does go up and then down, up and down. And the structure of the distance between those, I think, is paced very well. And it keeps me enraptured. Is that the word?
Yeah, that's another word for it. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the whole thing is an allegory for existentialism. Like, this is your only life, and it's either meaningless because you let it, or it has meaning because you made it. So that's why it resonates with so many people, is because it very much, like, whether you're in prison or whether you live in a construct of your own life as a prison, you can think of these things as being similar, and that's why this character and this struggle resonates with you.
Right. I agree with that. I'd like to think this movie is more of like a slice of life kind of movie, because it doesn't really seem to, until the very end when you realize it's kind of all been building to this escape. But like if you remove that part from the movie entirely, it's really just like this is what life is like in a prison. And I think that's interesting because slice of life concept shows up in other movies, but it's unique to see it in a prison, I think, and to see like the story told like by these characters and everything. So that's kind of like when I watch this movie, that's what I think it is. It's just to be like, these are stories of the characters in their life. So speaking of like slice of life and the characters like kind of driving this story, we'll get into more of them. What do you guys think of Andy Dufresne?
So Andy is perfect for why Shawshank works. But I want to know. I'll explain what I mean by that. I want to know what you guys think of him first.
I think he's a boring character, but it works. Like
why do you think it works?
Because he doesn't need to be like. He's not like. Gosh, how do I explain that? He's not super talkative, very active. He does I don't know, he's in his shell the whole movie.
I like to think of him as aloof, not boring.
Sure. I guess in my mind, those are similar.
You're right. One is like a nicer way of saying it, I guess. But I think that there's like a vagueness to his character that makes him interesting. And so you're like waiting for him to become like, and that his relationship moves along with Red. And so you get to like see more into who he is as a character. So I like his start. Yeah, like you're saying, he's in his shell, but he opens up a bit more. Yeah. But it is interesting. It's like there's always something like hidden about him, you know?
Yeah, he has very few lines in the movie, which I think is shocking for like your main character.
I love Tim Robbins in this too. I love that he got cast. I guess this like attracted like a lot of like Tom Cruise was trying to get in on it. This seems like a
Kevin Costner,
Tom Hanks, which this
Gene
seems like
Hackman.
Such a Tom Hanks movie to me. Like,
well, Tom Hanks did The Green Mile, which
Yeah.
is like a super similar movie.
it's same director. Too.
same director. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm glad that they chose Tim Robbins because there is too. He's kind of got like a weird, creepy quality to him. Like in the courtroom, you know, he's like the judge says like you're a cold-blooded killer. He's like I can't believe someone can come in here and just be so like blasé blah about this because he's got like creepy eyes and
Yeah.
So there's something like intriguing. I think the casting is great. I like that Andy character a lot.
Yeah, and I'd say so. Andy Dufresne is played with zero emotion and really zero character traits. I don't think he really displays any character traits throughout the whole film. And so whether by accident or design, what happens then is that he becomes an empty vessel for every audience member to deposit their experience into, because he's not idiosyncratic in a way that, oh, that's not me because I wouldn't behave like that. This is just what a normal guy just trying to make his lot in life acts like. So we all resonate with that. And so we see through Andy, we feel through Andy, like we become Andy. Like, and this just extends beyond empathy and even sympathy, because we can see ourselves there in his place getting beaten down. Like, that's Shawshank. Like, that's why this existentialism really works, and why the metaphor extends to us so well is because we can see ourselves in our own Shawshanks.
I like that you bring that up. You know, it's a story about Andy, but I think what's interesting about this is it's told through the perspective of Red, who is played by Morgan Freeman. It's a neat way to do a story because, you know, he's the one with like the voiceover and he's kind of describing all the events that are going on, but it really is a story about Andy. But what do you guys think of Morgan Freeman in this?
Honestly, like his voiceovers, like I get like heavy Family Guy vibes.
Oh yeah, I think that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because like that is all taken and put in Family Guy because it's inspired by Shawshank.
Yeah,
not because Shawshank is aping off Family Guy.
And I knew that, but I like forgot like how much they really matched his cadence. In Family Guy and a lot of other places. Like, so like it's fun visiting some of these classics and like seeing like how they are in other pop culture references, and then like seeing the original thing. It's kind of it's fun for that sake, not because it spawned something, but because like I've seen it in my modern day now.
Right.
Like, going back to the source.
There's a lot of narration. When one of the narration parts that always stuck out to me was when Brooks leaves the prison.
Right.
And it's like a lot of narration about how he's like not fitting in outside the prison.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watched that reminded me a lot of Up. When what's the old guy's name?
Carl.
When Carl and his wife, and they're like speeding through their whole life, and then she dies or whatever, and it's like a movie within a movie.
Oh, like his loneliness at the end of it. Yeah.
Kind of. Well, just like how that quick scene of Carl and his wife is like, it's like a separate movie within Up. It felt like this whole thing with Brooks and the narration from Morgan Freeman was like a movie within a movie. Yeah, that's something I noticed.
Oh, you could totally take that out, and it would be in its own like little short movie.
Exactly.
Totally yeah. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the darkest Pixar short yet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. He looks like Carl too.
Carl, the epilogue. The euphemism of suicide was real all along.
Oh my gosh.
I've caught so much flack from my family over that.
They hate you for that. Yeah.
They're like, "What is Calvin talking about? Up is not about suicide."
Have you guys not seen Shawshank?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
One thing just a little fun fact about Red. So this is based on a book by Stephen King, and he's an Irishman in that with red hair. And there's a fun little line where they ask Red, like, "Wow, how'd you get the name?" And he's like, "I don't know, maybe I'm Irish." So it's just like a little nod to the book. I think it's a fun little inside, like, little joke if you read the book,
That's funny.
or
That
if you
is
looked
funny,
up the fun facts.
Yeah, because that line confused me, but if it's
Yeah.
based on the book,
Yeah,
that makes a lot more
I
sense.
think it's just a quick little nod to the book.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
I thought maybe he was Native American, and this is just a joke in poor taste.
Isn't it, his last name is Red or something, isn't it?
Redding.
Red.
Redding, yeah.
I do like that you brought up Brooks. I think that's like part of the movie that really tugs at your heartstrings, is
It's a
that character.
significant scene, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like Calvin said, it's like his station within the prison, and now he's completely lost that, and how it's now he's more trapped on the outside than he was in the prison, and that's like I think that's probably something that doesn't get talked about in like real life very much. Is like there's a lot of people that come out of prison and they're like I don't fit in here at all. Like I was somebody back there, now I'm like bagging groceries here. So I like bringing that perspective in, and it really gives like a tragic nature to the story. Like Calvin is right. There are a lot of like emotional like ebbs and flows in this movie, and they're done really well. I'm starting to come around a little bit. I kind of thought this was a little boring, but that kind of how they pace out kind of your emotional moments works well.
Yeah, Brooks is really necessary for that reason, like because where they put it, and now that with him grappling, being in prison forever, you can't just have ebbs and flows like a normal slice of life thing. This is a completely different psychological thing being played out. It's a new type of drama, and looking at yourself like in terms of freedom as well. So that's why it feels out of place. It feels weird. It's not like any of the others. We have a different narrator, but it is so necessary, because otherwise this movie would drag.
I do want to talk about more plot-wise, like one of the, I think, less organic plot points in this is the introduction of Tommy's character and him being aware of the murder of his wife and the golf star she's been sleeping with.
Yeah.
That seems really contrived in a movie that I thought was like working out really well narratively. So I don't like really love that part, and it ends up kind of all being all for naught anyways. So I don't really know why. I don't think you need that in there. Like I said, all the tension in this movie between Andy and the warden doesn't really seem to matter, because I know it's going to work out for Andy in the end anyway. So having like that, having that part didn't really seem necessary to me. I wonder what you guys thought of that.
I agree that it does seem contrived, because up to that point, you're not really sure if he's guilty or not.
Right. And I like even too that Andy starts saying, he's like, they ask him what he's in there for.
He's like, "What do you mean? I'm innocent.
Yeah.
Everyone in here is innocent."
And then,
But then after Tommy shows up and he like tells that he was roomed with someone who was actually guilty for it, or likely guilty, then suddenly there's no more doubt anymore, and you know that he is innocent.
yeah.
But it would have been interesting if the movie ended and you weren't sure still if he was innocent or not.
It'd be almost more interesting if like the attorney from the beginning, like maybe gets some, like there's some more evidence shown, and he's like, oh, maybe like a shadow of a doubt type of thing. I think that would have fit in better than like having Tommy just be like, oh, I just so happen to know a guy that totally exonerates you.
Yeah, I don't know if I would like that more. I think I would prefer the Tommy reveal more, but you're right. It does seem contrived. Yeah.
That's probably the only part narratively that I'm just like, I don't really care for this.
Yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, and I don't know if the idea of us not knowing whether he did it or not. I think you need to know that he definitely didn't do it, because otherwise this movie isn't a redemption. It's a scumbag escaping.
Right. Yeah.
Even the hint of it is
Yeah.
really takes down what the heart of this movie is.
It couldn't be called Shawshank Redemption anymore.
Yeah.
Couldn't they reveal that he's innocent in a better, more natural way though?
Oh yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, because I was gonna make the example like otherwise this is Con Air,
Oh God, what an amazing movie that is. So that's kind of like an aspect of the film I don't like. Is there more stuff that you, like maybe kind of the bad of Shawshank?
Well, no. I'm almost finished with the good. Like,
okay.
Like because otherwise it's all of the characters. Like they're just archetypes. They have their little bits, and they don't get in the way.
Right.
And that's it. That's all we really need to talk about. Like, oh, one other character I did want to talk about is the captain. Do you know what else he's in?
I know him from Starship Troopers.
He is Mr. Krabs.
Oh yeah, he totally is. You're totally right. He is.
From SpongeBob?
Yeah, he
From
does the voice. He's the
SpongeBob.
voice actor for him.
Is it?
I could see that.
Yeah,
Are
I
you
could
sure?
see. Oh,
Now,
God.
now he's got like
Positive.
long hair and like a big beard and
Oh,
stuff.
weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Isn't that? Yeah.
He's the one who like captures the brain bug in Starship Troopers
Oh, yeah.
because he was like the drill sergeant for Johnny for like the beginning of the movie. And
I
then,
hate
like,
that movie
he
so much.
It's so great.
It's so nasty, and you guys would watch it, and I hated watching that movie.
It's like amazing propaganda satire.
I
It's
know.
so funny.
Yeah.
But back to Shawshank.
Yeah. So those are all of the reasons that Shawshank works. Those are what make it good. The characters are likable and enjoyable. They're understandable. It's really just plot structure.
That's why I describe this movie as really safe. Like everything is just really nice in it, even though it's in a prison. It's like, it's like, but everyone is likable. All the side characters are great, which is funny. Some of them have really neat names. Like you got like Snooze and Skeet, and they're all like little fun little guys in the background. I like them a lot.
But yeah, it's really hard to do still, but like it's a formula. So that's why it's a good movie. Is it sticks to its formula and it does it well.
Yeah, I was surprised though. The same director does that movie, The Mist, which is another Stephen King adaptation, and that movie is like horrific, like body horror, and it's like a story about kind of how when it kind of comes down to it, people turn to like their baser needs and how quickly people are to turn against each other, and you kind of get put in your own little group of like and there's conflict within the groups and everything like that. Like they murder a guy because he's in the military and they think he has something to do with it, even though he has nothing to do with it. So I think of in these movies are like 13 years apart, so the director can grow and change. But like looking at Shawshank, where I'm like, this is the safest suburban dad movie I've ever watched, and then The Mist is like out of control. Like it's really crazy and has like a lot of like interesting questions in it. It's a really good movie, but to think it's the same director.
Well, and what's interesting is Frank Darabont owned the rights to two other Stephen King novels. Like that's why. It's because for whatever reason he has an in with Stephen King to adapt all of his movies, and he just chose these ones. So I don't really know why, but yeah, it is interesting that's the case.
Stephen King got like a $5,000 royalty check for this, and he never cashed it. He like framed it and then sent it back to Frank Darabont. He's like, in case you ever need like bail money. It's pretty funny.
That's amazing.
But away from the fun facts, as much as I like them, so yeah, some of the bad, like why doesn't this work?
So why is Shawshank a bad film? 142 minutes of film, and I counted one shot that I found visually interesting.
Yeah.
And I think you both know which one I'm talking about, right? Which one am I talking about?
I think you probably like the aerial shot of the prison where it kind of goes over the top of it and then spins around. I thought that was like interesting. Or there's a couple wide shots of the prison, like I think when the one prisoner gets taken out who's like crying at night saying he shouldn't be there. There's like a really neat wide shot of that.
But that's the same one. It's always come back and everything's always centered. I don't find that's a very like, we don't have anywhere else to be in this room than all the way at the end of the hall in the middle of it. So it's really more of a convention of being in that space than it is a cinematic choice for composition.
Right. I had a note about that as well. It's like, because they filmed this in an actual prison. And so I thought like all the shots of people in cells, like they don't really work because they filmed it not on a soundstage where they got to build a cell to like film to make a good shot in. So those shots don't really work at all for me.
They're very tight.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a camera in there with with how wide you need to get it, like get your angles.
But your favorite shot?
It's the helicopter shot.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so that's it. Like, so you have this we fly over the building and we look out over the prison yard and it hangs for a while, you know. It's like 30 seconds. But as everyone is walking to the gate, but that is it. That shot is also completely out of place in this movie.
Oh, totally.
That's
really, why I noticed it.
Yeah, it really doesn't belong. It doesn't provide the tone or the atmosphere that they're. It's not a Denis Villeneuve shot. Those, when he does those shots, they're in service of his film, of his central idea, of his atmosphere. That's not going on here. Like, there's not a single shot with interesting composition, a single shot with more than basic camera work. I don't even know if we have any shots that go over a minute. So nothing's even fun in terms of technique. So, but why Shawshank isn't a film is because it can't tell its story without Morgan Freeman talking for 90% of it.
Okay.
Like, this film would suck without the voiceovers because the images aren't speaking. It's why I hate voiceovers. Like, if your movie needs voiceovers, then you didn't take advantage of your camera, or you may not even know how to get your camera to speak. Like, that's film. Go and listen to our Hereditary and our Midsummer episodes, because we talk at length about how everything within the frame works to enhance the context of the shot or the central idea of the film. There's nothing like that here.
Yeah, I made a note, like, nothing is visually interesting. It's just, they just need to have a camera show stuff because it's a movie. That's how it felt.
Like let's take the scene with the beers, and they're talking about how we felt like Freeman that one time. You can give so many different camera angles about like skies and like a little bit montage of like what it means to be like outside and moving without bounds.
Right.
But it's just, they're just walking around on the roof with the camera.
It would have been kind of cool.
Story.
Because like there's shots of the outside of the prison. It's all like green grass and nice. It would have been kind of cool if, having the perspective of them being on the roof, you could then see like the green grass and forest without seeing like the prison fence. And so it would make it feel like, yes, they are outside, they are free, instead of just having Morgan Freeman tell you they felt free,
Right, because then it's their perspective of seeing what it's like to be free.
Right.
It's not them saying, we felt like Freeman. That's a book. That's why this was a good book. That's why this movie is a book, is because you could literally close your eyes and understand everything that this movie is trying to say.
Right.
Which is unfortunate.
So instead of having these dynamic, beautiful shots, they went the cheap way and just put in narration, is your point?
Well, it's not necessarily that they went the cheap way to put these in. It's because it was a book, and so they adapted it as a book. And some people just aren't good at adapting something to a different medium, because it needs to be something else. You look at like the difference between Dune. Like if you take all of the voiceovers and the thoughts of people in the book, you get David Lynch's 1984 version, which is awful.
Yeah, yeah, that's brutal.
And then if you figure out how to get your camera to speak, you have Denis Villeneuve's 2021 version of Dune, which is visually arresting in every way. It is the true cinematic experience.
Right.
So you need to understand how your medium works and how it is different than a book.
I don't even know that doing the voiceover is the cheap way. I bet Morgan Freeman commands a pretty high salary for voiceover.
Perhaps
his voice is magical.
Not the cheap way, but like it's the easy way.
Yeah, no. I get what you're saying.
It's a cop out for sure. And again, it's like you can, if no one understands what they're saying, like just throw in some exposition, and that's what voiceovers do. And that's why I hate them.
So you would like this movie if it had zero narration or less?
It would be worse if it didn't have narration.
I agree.
It's absolutely necessary to have the narration, because this is a shitty film.
Right.
That's why.
Got it.
I do want to talk a little bit about the escape. I think it's kind of funny. So he gets the rock hammer, and I love that Red's like, this is like a special request. He's like, I usually do a 20% markup, but I'm going to have to charge a little more. He's like, $10 for the hammer. I love that it's only $10. Like,
yeah,
I thought
right.
That was so funny. I mean,
I kind of forgot that this was like in the 40s.
Yeah, I was like, that would cost so much, Now he's like, oh yeah, I'll do it for a pack of Marlboro Reds. It's like it. Like, I thought that was funny, and then it is a little goofy. I think kind of how he escapes. He's like they think it's going to take him like 100 years if he used the hammer, and he's like, Andy did it in less than 20.
Yeah.
I did see a comment about it. They're like, it looks like something you'd see out of like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon, like just the hole he crawls through it. Like it's so kind of cartoonish,
Yeah.
I think that's a kind of a funny note on that, but it is a little goofy, the actual like kind of escape,
Especially like
supposed to be so dramatic.
Yeah, especially breaking into the pipe, like trying to time it with the thunder and the lightning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was weird. And like also like how big he smashed a hole in the pipe.
What, with like a rock?
Yeah, exactly.
They kind of gloss over that, but he must have hit that pipe like 1,000 times.
I do think it's like, if that's going to be like your kind of your climax, it's like it should be a little bit better than that. But again, I think for the time, it's fine.
Yeah, it's not the point.
Right. Like I said, like to me, this is a slice of life type thing, and the escape is almost like not really necessary. Like you could just...
I disagree with that.
I think the whole point of the movie is when he gets out of the pipe and he's like in the water and he like takes off his shirt and he's finally free. That's like the whole point of the movie.
Well, I guess then you wouldn't have the redemption.
Exactly.
That would make the title useless. But I mean, like, in terms of what makes the movie like good, the escape is not the part of the movie that I'm like, is the good part of the movie. I don't think it's the characters. Like that's
I
what makes the movie good to
I
me.
don't think so.
Wow. Okay.
I think
Wow.
that the characters are completely blank. Like Calvin said, they're just archetypes, and they don't really serve a purpose.
They're just really there to provide the emotion, to drive the plot points and make them seem believable, to bounce everything off of everything. So like honestly, like his friendship with Red is like the Shawshank's final act of magic is in the reveal of the tunnel, and it works because you have a storyteller who never knew, despite being the man's best friend for 20 years.
Right.
Like if that's like their entire friendship isn't the point of this film. It's not what makes it good. It's in service of that reveal. That's what's kind of weird about this movie. Is that these characters aren't necessary. They're just there to drive the plot.
I guess that is like an interesting way to put it. Like, because it makes you feel like this movie is about the characters, which is how I took it. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is a story about this friend group, I guess, it's about Andy and Red. But I guess if you kind of change it to that perspective, it's all about the escape and how Andy is doing everything like really purposeful. Like I love, he's like reading the Bible when the warden comes in. To like, because he's a religious man, and so he's trying to get on the good side and everything. It's like everything he does is like really purposeful. So I guess
it's also because he was hiding the hammer.
Right.
But yeah, so that's what I mean. It's like if this movie goes in two completely different directions with the tunnel scene, with the escape. With it, it's all about the plot and the structure. Without it, it's slice of life.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I like that. Kind of the two different perspectives you can take to it. Mm-hmm. Makes this movie more interesting. A movie that I didn't find entirely interesting.
I don't find it interesting either. It's just like this is about as I dug deep. I dug really deep, and like so there's a bunch of themes and motifs that people have put to this. Like this, so there's this idea of Christian mysticism around it, like Andy as a messianic Christ-like figure, like the beers being like a Last Supper type thing. Huh. Like you have the warden quoting Jesus from scripture, like, but it's interpreted as like Lucifer will appear as a beacon of light, and he knows the words of God too, blah, blah. And you have Zihuatanejo being like the idea of heaven and paradise, and you'll be with me. Like if you get out, you can come join me here. And then you also have like these other things, like this idea of the power of cinema, like film to escape reality, because you have the film nights. You have Andy's pinups. Mm-hmm. You have the beating back of the sisters with like an actual film reel.
Right.
And then like the other big thing is like Andy and Red's friendship, like non-sexual friendship, like centered around getting to know the other person, not schemes or women. Like true freedom is friendship. These are all things that people have ascribed to it. And like, so I think we've all know, like, I like to really analyze movies.
For sure, yeah.
I like to look for symbols and allegories and motifs and sometimes make leaps that just aren't there. This film has none of that.
Yeah.
I read that and I was like, people like ascribing all of this Christian mysticism to it, and like, no, it's in the tension of a corrupt system. It's all in service of beating the little guy down who is blameless, but not like, sure, maybe there's little like connections to like a Christ-like figure, but it's because like that's not the point. Like this film is not any of those things. Like it was like maddening to read all of this.
It sounds like a lot of people trying to make connections that aren't there.
Yeah, and it's just because like that's the power of stories. Like this is all the Jung stuff that we talk about. Like the way we tell stories hasn't ever really changed. So these things just keep repeating themselves, and that's all it is. Like it got into Shawshank Redemption because it's how we tell all of our stories, but it's not purposeful.
Right.
It's not actually connected to anything, and we know for sure that that's the case because there is not a single shot here that is trying to say anything other than its story.
Right. That's, again, this is a really safe movie. I think if you're pulling all that stuff out of it, I think you're reaching.
Yeah, like which is funny because I mean most of the time you guys look at me like when I bring up like mother archetypes, and you're like, what the hell is he talking? Like
it's refreshing to hear you be like, it's just a movie.
yeah, absolutely. I was like shocked that there existed other people that were like, man, this movie is deep.
So deep.
What?
No. Are we ready to wrap this one up? Do you guys want to give scores on this one?
I'm ready.
Yeah.
How many soapstone chess pieces do you give this one, McKinnon?
So I do
Gosh.
have one final thought though.
Okay.
Because so it's like structure wise, it's the best version of a Lifetime Channel movie.
Ooh, that's so good.
It's a Hallmark movie. It's something on TLC. It's everything that those movies wish they were.
I like that.
Yeah.
But that's all.
Yep.
I give it a soapstones.
Yeah, that's one of the rocks he uses to carve his chess.
Oh, I thought you meant like don't drop the soapstone or something.
Oh, no.
Oh, wrong. That's Con Air.
Yeah.
6.5, I suppose. Maybe 7. It's a harmless movie. It's not doing anything outrageous, and it's
harmless is perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect way to put it.
It's 6.5.
I say 5. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's-
I'm giving it a 7.8 because it's very hard to do what they did without also including any film elements.
That's so interesting. You talk the most negatively about it, but you're giving it the most.
Because it's more of this concept that everyone understands that this movie is good. Why is it not great?
Okay.
And I know what makes it good, and it's very hard to do that.
Okay.
So that's really why I will give it more credit than it's due. Because if you're gonna come up with your formula, your Hallmark movie formula, look at how many are terrible.
Right.
Just utter garbage. So the fact that this took that formula and did it well enough to hold attention for 142 minutes is fascinating.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
can do
triumph.
In light of all the negative stuff, they're still good.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All right, yeah. So we're wrapping this one up. Remember, you can find us on any platform you're looking for your podcast, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We also upload these to YouTube. And if you want to get a hold of us, we have an email at nowthisispodcasting100@gmail.com. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel. We like to check those. I always get on and try to reply to what I see. And if you have any suggestions for things we should do in the future. So thank you for listening to Now This Is Podcasting.